What's happening, guys? James Blonde here with MMOHuts.com. Finally checking out one of, if not the most anticipated games that we've been waiting forever to come to the West, and that is none other than Boobs and Soul, or Blade and Soul, as it's often referred to as. The legendary Korean fantasy-style action MMORPG developed and published by Team Bloodlust, the in-house dev team for NCSoft. Now, besides just the awesome visuals, this game features an extremely sought-after action combat and combo system tied into an open-world environment, plenty of customization features, and, of course, really solid PvP. As of recently, and after a long and confusing path of either hope or doubt, NCSoft announced that the game was officially coming to the West and launching in North America and Europe in the first part of 2016, so just around the corner. The game is going to be free to play with an optional premium subscription model that doesn't cast out players that choose to play the game completely free, and I'll talk about that a little bit more as we get into it. So currently the game is still in closed beta, just finishing up the second closed beta weekend event out of 5, and this one introduced the European servers, in addition to the North American servers that were introduced for the first event on October 29th. You do need separate closed beta keys in order to get into each one of the beta events, or of course you can gain access to each one by picking up any of the Founders Packs that are available. So yeah, with that said, I'll hop in and give you guys a quick overview of what we've all been waiting for. Of course, starting out, you've got a detailed character creation menu here that immediately starts to introduce the first class to you.
Wield their swords with surgical precision. Their versatility allows them to both evade enemy attacks with devastating accuracy.
So it's cool that it narrates it for you, so that way you can actually get a visual preview of the class here. Like I've said in the past, I always like it when they have class preview windows. Under that, we have the power type breakdown. The Blade Master here is fairly well rounded, as you can see. Even has decent range and defense. I also like that it shows you the difficulty and then gives you the quick rundown of their playstyle. So in general, this entire section here is really nice in trying to figure out how you want to play the game. Now, this is really unique to this particular race, the Jin. It gives you information about that race, which is one of 4 different races to choose from, as you can see here. And honestly, the variety of races just adds sort of a layer of customization to the game, with each race having 3 classes to choose from. And with this, certain classes are exclusive to specific races, and other times the classes will actually overlap and be an option for multiple races. And gender has no effect on accessing the classes within any of the races. Now, with that said, only one race is gender locked, which is explained as the female-only race, the Yoon. And as an example, they have access to the Blade Master class, the Kung Fu Master, and the Force Master. Now, one of the unique features of the Gon race, as an example, is that they're really tall and huge in comparison to the other races, and I'll show you a comparison here shortly to get an idea, especially the male. I mean, there's a really cool variety when it comes to the characters that you see out in the open world when you're playing, which of course is always good, but this race gets you access to the Berserker-like Destroyer class, which is exclusive to this race, and you'll see a decent amount of these out in the open world, and I've got to admit, they do look pretty awesome. And then you have the Lin race, which is the cutesy lolly-looking race with big ears. Kind of doesn't matter that these have both options for gender, just because it's a little hard to tell the difference, really. But with this race, you gain access to the Blade Dancer, the Summoner, and again, the Force Master. And the Blade Dancer is similar to the Assassin class with high mobility and high attack speed, which they rely on in order to evade damage entirely. Now, this is exclusive to this race, along with the Summoner class, which is the one with the Feline Familiar, that you can customize as well, which is really cool. You can buy costumes for them and everything. And of course, it's really cool that they can just transfer health from enemies to themselves. As you can imagine, that's a really useful and convenient skill. And on that note, the Jin gives you access to the Assassin class, which in this game is probably the most difficult class to play as, and they're just like the Lin's Blade Dancer, but with less overall attack, but a lot more stealthy abilities. They're really good at utilizing the combo system in the game because you can set yourself with different chained abilities. You can also do this with a Kung Fu Master early on as well. So all in all, you've got 7 available classes in the game, with an 8th class, the Warlock, coming to the game sometime after launch. So very similar to Black Desert, which we looked at recently, you've got an almost overwhelming amount of customization options. Starting with your background, you know the customization ahead of you is going to be pretty detailed if it seems to be based around showcasing your character in all kinds of different settings. And of course, poses, we've got options for that as well. Of course, it's these kind of features that add a little bit to the game. Always like that pose there. Pretty cool. Beyond the poses, of course, you've got options for outfits. So you can kind of get an idea for some of the costumes that are in the game. Like, that's pretty cool. Oh, that one is interesting. May have to get that one later. This one's pretty cool too. A lot of the costumes are really detailed. I'll show you some more when we get into the game. The lighting, of course, you have options here just to, I guess, see your character in a different light. You'll see that inside the game. Here's the comparison body type. So this will kind of give you an idea of the different races in comparison. So you can see that the Gon is considerably bigger, especially when you compare it to the Lin. And then if you look at the male Gon, it's like ginormous. His hand is the same size as pretty much the upper body of the Yun female. And then you can select the voice. You're going to hear a lot of this. Most of them sound, besides this one, sound like a little girl like this.
This is only the beginning.
I don't feel that fits, but it is the Lin default. Of course, you have the Jin default. But even that is still a little too little girl for me. This one always works. I think she agrees. And then from there you can start with some presets. You can always zoom and rotate your character, but you'll notice there's a lot of detail in the features, which is nice. Even though the art style is a little different than you're used to seeing in MMORPGs, it's kind of like a cel-shaded or cross between cartoon and real effect, almost like Borderlands in a way. The nice part is from there you can select more presets specifically on the face type, or you can go in and customize the individual features and their proportions, which is really nice because they remain proportionate. So it's a controlled customization without having to get too out of hand with the details for some players. It's good to have presets for simple creations, but just enough detailed options and sliders for those who want to customize further. So all in all, it's easy to see that this game isn't lacking in customization features. And yes, Boobs and Soul has an epic boob slider. I'll leave it at that. And also mention that there's a perfect way to give your females more booty, in case you like more junk in the trunk. Don't usually have that option in other MMOs. So as you can see, it's very easy to create a unique look in this game. I mean, looking back on it, there's probably enough here to have made a separate video on just the customization alone. So that's enough of that. When you first get into the game, you get introduced to the story, of course. You're rescued from the ocean and then taken aboard a ship. But you have a flashback that gets you introduced to the game mechanics in a tutorial style, and of course it gives you some background information on why you're floating out in the ocean. I've got to say, it's been a little while since I've had an MMORPG like this immediately start to entertain me with the storyline aspects, and part of that is just because it's interesting what's happening, first off, but mainly it's because all of the dialogue in the game is narrated. Now, I can't say the voiceover in this is hit or miss, by all means. I mean, some of it is really impressive with a lot of enthusiasm put into it.
Still half asleep, huh? The bird that greets the rising sun is the first to eat its fill. It means those who train hard will be rewarded. Your day will come, Cricket. I'm hopeful that mine will come soon. Should we go to the duel hall?
And then some of it is just god-awful.
I bet he headed to the Black Ram camp. I'm not sure where the Black Ram are hiding, but they must be close. I bet one of those coastal grunts has a map on it.
And the awful stuff is not just in the way it sounds, but the fact that you've got Asian martial arts masters talking with weird North American dialects, and different dialects from one NPC to the next, even if they happen to be related to one another, which is kind of weird. Either way, seeing that the main storyline quests are in fact voiced over, it really helps keep you interested in what's going on, and just goes to show how much of an impact that can have in games like this. That, and there are a lot of really awesome cutscenes too, that are well done, I might add. So in this beginning area here, you learn your first abilities, which have to do with movement, which is another huge feature in this game. Right off the bat, you can sprint, and it's very fast, and lasts for a long time. Plus, you can jump like a superhero, and then eventually you're able to glide for long distances, depending on how high you start out first. Now, it's awesome how the visuals work really well with the gliding mechanic as you move around. It kind of feels like you're piloting an airplane, or looks that way anyway. At the very least, it seems like what you're doing is natural looking. After all, it is the art of windwalking. After learning about that, along with some basic combat attacks and the revive system, you get to watch your school and friends crash and burn, all thanks to this evil woman, this evil girl, and that fat yet still buff dude. So of course they succeed in taking out your school, not you, and this is where you flash forward and you're being saved by the man on the boat, who happens to be the captain of the Bamboo Guard, who is fighting the Black Ram. And the cool part about all of this is that you get thrown right into the action, and from there the game no longer feels like a tutorial. Everything you learn seems to be tied into the game seamlessly. Alright, so with that said, on to the combat in the game. It's the part you've been waiting for. The best way to describe this is a really nice blend of action combat that you might find in other MMORPGs like Terra, Vindictus, or even Black Desert, and mix that with a fighting style game, just because you have the combo system. So not only are you able to do all kinds of different combos, you do have to watch your back. You've got to learn timing and counter and parry most of your attacks. Not to mention there are a ton of CC abilities like stuns, knockdowns, grabs, and takedown looking moves. All of which can set you up for continuous combat. Now, just like Terra or Black Desert, each one of these moves is really satisfying to land as well. Great audio and visual feedback in the combat, as you can already tell. But seeing that you have so many options in how you take down enemies, that's what makes the combat system in this game really fun. The targeting is reticule-based, soft targeting, but you do have the freedom to execute skills whenever you want. You don't have to be locked onto a target. The cooldowns are generally fast, and you've got a basic attack on your left mouse button that you can use to spam into combos, and it generally builds up some kind of resource used to fuel your other abilities. Now, the Kung Fu Master here is a little bit harder to use than some of the other classes just because their abilities are a nice mix-up of both offensive and defensive abilities, and you've got to learn when to switch back and forth. Like this, for example, this is one of the first abilities you start out with, which is a block and counter ability. You can use this to open yourself up to a whole chain of other combos in the future, like so, and you do this based on watching your enemy's attack animations, which can be tough and really inconsistent as you get into the higher level enemies, but once you master this, is really fun to play around with. Plus, the Kung Fu Master doesn't really do that well with more than 1 or 2 enemies at a time, especially early game. But I can say it's very satisfying to be able to grapple like this and then decide whether to do a headbutt to get a small bit of health back or just beat their face in for a decent chunk of damage. You can also dash attack from a distance with tab in order to get in and start quick combos. This lets you hit them way before they can hit you. And again, the coolest part about the combat is not just that it's an action style enough to be compared to a fighting game, but it's very situational. Depending on what skills you use, it will put you in a position to use other specific skills that you can only use during that time. For example, if you get knocked down, you might have several abilities or options that you can quickly choose to retaliate with. Or like with the grapple as an example. As I level further, I'll get way more abilities that I can branch further out into other combos. So the combat is adaptive, and that's what makes it stand out on its own. And I can definitely say this is exactly what I've been waiting for in an MMO. So now we can talk a little bit about the gear, or lack thereof. So in this game, instead of chest armor, gloves, or boots, you've got a soul shield system. Martial artists don't have time for the protection of armor. They draw their power through intense training, meditation, and mastery of the elements around them. And therefore, they get all of their stats through a soul shield and a few trinkets and, their weapon, of course. The soul shield is made up of 8 different sections, kind of like a pie. It's the easiest way to explain it. Each piece is angled in a specific way that indicates which section of the shield that it can be placed. They're also numbered, so it's a little easier to keep track of. Now, when you see all the pieces in your inventory, it's really hard to look at, but it does have a nice organized tab here that helps out quite a bit. Now, each piece here is part of a set, and unfortunately, I'm missing just the one piece in this set, but the more complete your set is, the better the additional bonuses get. Additional bonuses can be gained by using 3, 5, or all 8 pieces. But as you can see, just like stats on gear that you might be used to, each piece has its own stats, and of course it's colored based on rarity. This particular set focuses on HP, accuracy, and crit. Besides having the set, you can mix and match for specific stat boosts that you might be looking for, and you'll still get some of the additional bonuses as long as you have at least 3 or 5 in the set. Now, it can be hard to find complete sets, so you may end up turning to the auction house for that, but it does tell you where you found each piece so far, so that can be somewhat helpful as well. In addition to that, you can have an alternative soul shield ready to switch to, which can probably be the most helpful when alternating between PvE and PvP. Beyond that, you can do some reinforcing to pieces, which will give you stat increases depending on the piece used, and you still get some stats from trinkets and jewelry, though I haven't picked any of those up yet to make any sort of comparisons. Your weapon, of course, deals with your attack damage directly, and you can enhance it in several different ways, which is fairly easy. You can even salvage other weapons for different classes to enhance your gear, and you can also socket gems that will, of course, boost the stats. Besides just a soul shield, you've also got costumes, of course. These are primarily cosmetic with no stats, and the official website says it best. Your clothes don't determine your fighting ability, but can influence how the world around you reacts to your presence. So in other words, certain outfits you wear represent your allegiance to a faction and will flag you for an attack by those of an opposing faction. There are multiple factions in the game, but the two primary player factions are the Cerulean Order and the Crimson Legion. The others are essentially just regional factions that you find throughout the game. And you get your faction outfit fairly early in the game once you've made your decision. In my case, it wasn't a decision. The Crimson Legion was way too full. And if you wear it, you'll be flagged for PvP against the other faction. And you also have to keep in mind, faction-based outfits can't be put on or taken off very quickly, so you can't use them to dodge out of a fight or anything. You also have to have an outfit on in order to use a soul shield. And I have a feeling later on, just to, make things a little bit more complex, you'll have to have a specific outfit in order to gain the benefits from a specific soul shield. But then again, that's just my guess. So you do gain new outfits as you progress in the game, but they're also a huge part of the game, and there's an entire wardrobe section that will let you preview costumes and indicate where to find them, what quest or boss drops them, and of course how rare they are. And I've got to say, all of the costumes look pretty badass. Of course, there are even more costumes in the cash shop, but these are just purely cosmetic from what I've seen. Basically along the same lines as what you'd find in Terra. Swimsuits, as an example. And yeah, there is a subscription-based membership that is optional, that gets you additional in-game items and cosmetics, that is set up very similar to how WildStar is now set up, with its cosmic reward systems. I'm not going to really go into it in this video, but I do get into great detail and show examples in my What to Expect video here. So definitely check that out if you're interested. And put it this way, after talking to the NCSoft team on Blade and Soul at E3, they said that they had a similar cash shop situation in Path of Exile, which offers free, and in this case, premium players every bit of the game, and then everything paid for is purely cosmetic or perhaps convenient, even when it comes to the premium membership players. And this kind of shows in their Founders Pack options as well. Plus, you can buy a Founders Pack and then return it if you want. Say if you didn't like the game during the closed betas for some reason. That's really cool, and it just goes to show that they stand confidently behind their product. Nothing at all wrong with that. But anyway, that's all I have to show you guys for the game so far. Overall, I've got to say I'm super impressed. There are a couple of things I didn't get to try out just yet, namely PvP or some of the other classes, but I can say, based on just a little bit that I've played in comparison to how much I actually want to play, this game is every bit and more of what I expected. And the crazy part is, it's technically several years old, depending on if you're basing your time frame off of development in general or waiting on the English version, but it more than holds up against some of the best MMORPGs on the market today. Imagine if it would have come out in the West when it was supposed to, like 2 or so years ago. It would have been the turning point for all future MMOs. But yeah, let us know in the comments below what you guys think about the game so far, if you happen to be playing it already. Like I said, it's currently in closed beta, about to start up closed beta event 3. And while I was making this video, they accidentally leaked the launch date for the Western version, which happens to be January 17th. Even earlier for those with the Founders Pack. So thanks for watching, guys. Pick up even more information about Boobs and Soul at the game profile MMOHuts.com. And until next time, guys, that's going to be it for me. I'm James Blonde. See you out there, gamers.